Cool it down. Let's make it our business. A climate podcast that's about innovators, change makers, and entrepreneurs who are taking actions, creating solutions, and inspiring many. This podcast is supported by US Department of State, created by BBC Media Action, India.
Ready to cool it down? Hi, I'm Sayema, and today we are going to explore the power of storytelling and creativity to move the needle on climate action. We'll be in conversation with three incredible voices. Nandita Das, the actor, director, and a social activist. Atul Bhalla, a prolific artist. And Kelsey Rae, an extraordinary musician. Nandita, welcome to Cool It Down. You've been a powerful voice in art and cinema and social advocacy, shedding light on social issues that often go unspoken. This podcast is all about facing the urgent need to cool it down when it comes to our planet. So to you personally, Nandita, if I may ask, what does cooling it down mean? Why do you feel it's so critical that we focus the positive rather than the negative? And as a collective, think about what we can do?
So it's a very pertinent question because, cooling it down is important, and often we just talk about the negativities, this is not happening and that's not happening, like you rightly said. What we need to do is, how do we create a positive action? Once we recognize that yes, we need to slow down the environmental impact on the earth, on this planet, and we need to foster a sense of responsibility where we respect what are the boundaries that we cannot cross. NASA has, we've seen the reports where they've said that this is like an all-time high temperature. Asia, Europe, we have seen crazy soaring of temperatures. So it's an alarm. And sometimes you wonder, why are we going on, as business as usual? Because the climatic impact has already shown, like, there are lots of vulnerable communities and islands that are just going to be completely submerged. We know the ice is melting like crazy in the Arctic Circle. So, so cooling down the earth, cooling down the environment is an urgent need, and we are all complicit, and therefore we all need to participate in making things better.
Totally. I'm so glad you said it in as many words. We really need to think about what we can do, what we must do, especially when we can see so many vulnerable communities around, as you pointed. As a filmmaker and a storyteller, you know the power of narratives and changing perspectives. How do you think art, culture, popular media can shape public understanding and action around climate change?
I think art, we often say, mirrors reality. It mirrors what's happening in the world. And sometimes abstract issues like climate change, can become more tangible, can become more personal. A sense of immediacy can come in these stories, because stories are what move people, what make people think and reflect and empathize. So I think it's really important. I've seen documentaries like The Human Element or Before the Flood, those who bring to life real issues that it's happening to people. Who said that when there are just fancy big figures, then they just remain statistics. But when it's about a particular person or particular community, then it invokes a certain kind of empathy, and that sort of propels us to care, and that propels us to act and make that difference. So I think whether it's literature, whether it's cinema, whether it's theatre, whether it is visual art, all of this plays on our, creates that shift in a very subliminal way. And things that are more subliminal, that are subconscious, I think they have a greater impact in creating that shift. If you just tell me, if we just do all this talk is great and we all need to do that as well, but only that doesn't shift how we think and how we respond. So I think art can play definitely an important role in making us more sustainable, making us more responsible, making us more empathetic, making us more aware of what's really happening to our planet.
That's very powerfully put. Art mirrors reality. Nandita, one of the realities is that we are living in the world of social media, in a very dynamic world of content creators, and youth is a powerhouse, right? So, what advice would you give to youth who want to use their voices, their talent, their creativity to address climate change? What is that one thing you wish the younger generation understood about the power of storytelling?
Yeah, I mean, any tool, it's a tool at the end of the day. Social media or to be digitally connected is a tool. You can use it for good and you can use it for bad. So I think if we can use it to amplify these messages, if we can all become sort of climate activists, activist has been misunderstood a lot sometimes, but it doesn't have to be those people who just dedicate their lives, and great respect to that. But all of us in our own way, if we think that this is going to impact me, my family, my community, my planet, you have to keep expanding what you think is your family, what you think is your tribe. Then I feel that the young people can really use the digital medium which they use all the time to amplify these messages. I mean, look at what Greta Thunberg did, right? As a young person who deeply cared about it, her message became viral because she spoke up. She used the digital medium. Others then amplified her message and it became inspirational. But all of us are capable of doing our little bit, and I think every drop counts. So if we tell these stories, if we tell why we care about it honestly and passionately, then I think there will be a rippling effect.
And I'm sure so many artists, so many musicians, so many people from creative field are listening to you right now. What about entrepreneurship, Nandita? Do you see any scope for creative entrepreneurship in climate narrative?
I mean, I think there's great potential and people are already doing it. They are blending art and tech and sustainability to inspire that change. If you see the fashion industry, it's become a bit of a catchword, to have sustainable fashion or slow food, eco-friendly brands. If there is honesty in that, and there are a lot of honest brands that are doing that and doing it really as a mission, and it shows in their products, it shows in their intent and what they do. And there are some who are just using the term. But I'm not a cynic, so I want to say that, even if you're just using the term, you're bringing in that consciousness, but do it honestly, because only then the actual environment is going to change. If you say we are a sustainable product, but are using gallons of water, using, your carbon footprint is very high, or it's not a sustainable thing, then anyway, you're not contributing to that shift. So I think there is a great potential of sort of climate-focused creative entrepreneurship where, the musicians and artists and filmmakers can join hands with people who have the wherewithal to fund projects that are more eco-friendly, that are sustainable, that are in sync with this larger global mission of cooling the planet down.
That's awesome. Amazingly and lucidly put. That's you, Nandita. I'm hoping that people who are listening to us right now, they get a lot of ideas about what they can be doing if they want to tickle their creative bug. At Cool It Down, we believe that individual actions, as you said, when multiplied can lead to big changes. What's that one step you think everyone can take to start making an impact, no matter how small it may seem?
I mean, I don't know. What I try to practice, and we struggle, is that, ask yourself all the time that, do I need it or do I want it? That is what I tell my child who's 14 now. And since he was really small, you kind of build into your instinct. It becomes an instinct to just consume less. I think at an individual level, even if you're not on social media, even if you're not on, you don't think of yourself as a crusader of some sort, or even if you think that, I'm not creative enough, my circle of influence is too small, sometimes we diminish our power. I think each one of us is like I said, complicit, is a contributor to this mess that we have created. And therefore, each one of us also has the responsibility and can make that change by just consuming less. I think we are over consuming at every level, whether it's clothes, whether it's shoes, whether it's things in our kitchen, in our cupboards, most of us, I'm not saying all, we also live in a very poor country. The world has great amount of poverty where people are, just fighting for or like struggling for that one meal a day. So there are a lot of people who are still living below poverty, but all of us who are privileged, the fact, we can afford a computer and we are seeing it. I'm taking the liberty of speaking for all of us that we all have more than what we need. And we keep pushing the line of our needs, because what was a luxury a few years ago has become a necessity today. So only we can ask ourselves that, do I really just want it or do I really need it? And just be mindful. Let's be all mindful consumers. And by that, I think we will just have to produce less and therefore abuse the planet less.
Oh yes, we've got to be very careful about that. Thank you so much, Nandita, for taking out time for us, for giving us some really cool it down tips. And thank you for being on the Cool It Down podcast.
Thank you for having me and giving me this opportunity, because, these are not issues that we talk often enough. And while I do talk a lot about social justice and human rights, but, it's all, climate change is in a way above it all, because it involves every living being on this planet. And therefore, it's really important. The more we talk about it, the more we think about it, the more we put that intent in our hearts, I think we will see a visible change soon.
This conversation is only going to heat up more as this episode has some brilliant minds sharing their creativity with us. Keep listening. We're joined by a special guest, Atul Bhalla, an artist whose work has taken him from the peaks of the Himalayas to the sands of the Sindh desert, capturing the profound impact of climate change. Atul's powerful visual storytelling challenges us to see the environment in new ways and inspires us to think about our role in a changing world. Welcome to the podcast, Atul.
Thank you.
Atul, you have traveled to places affected by climate change, like the Himalayas and the Sindh desert. How have these changing landscapes influenced your art?
See, it's not a recent journey. I probably started off very early, before the bandwagon of environmental catastrophe was really on us. I've been working with water, working with the Yamuna, the water bodies of Delhi, since almost 1996-97. And then I've been engaged with the river, and a large body of work came out of engagement with how do we treat the river. I also did a Yamuna walk, where I walked the length of the river in 2007. There's another interesting work which is called I Was Not Waving But Drowning, where I immersed myself in the polluted waters of the Yamuna at Wazirabad Barrage. And that was 2005, and that's work is in the collection of the Harvard Art Museums. So I've been engaged with climate change, especially through water, as a repository of history, meaning, and myth. Because without water, we cannot live, neither can any life on earth.
That's right. Does all of this, or do all of these have actually changed or influenced your art?
Yeah, very much so. See, my engagement, like I said, started 96, 97, and then I continued with working on the Yamuna. I also looked at water bodies in the city, whether they are lakes and bawlis and what happened to them, and how did Delhi survive, looking at its history. So my work lends itself, most of our work is photographic, and I've taken a number of landscapes, riverscapes, and how we engage with the river, who live on the river, who gets access to the river. It's strange that there is no access to the river. The only access to the river is the Nikambodh Ghat, which is a cremation ground. It's an access of death. Or you go to the river to immerse the ashes, which is again an access of death. So where does one go and sit by the river? All great cities around the world have rivers passing through them. You can go sit by the river, enjoy the river bank, enjoy the city, and just be a place of just recreation, right? You go with your family, go with your friend and sit by the river. Where in Delhi do you go and sit by the river? There's hardly any place. There's the only access to the river is an access of death. And incidentally, mythologically, Yamuna is supposed to be the sister of Yama. So they used to say that if you bathe in the river, you would keep Yama away, that is, keep death away. But now the Yamuna itself is almost dead. Quite an irony.
Quite an irony. That's true. Atul, your work often shows the slow effects of climate change. How do you think art makes us confront these issues differently from, say, scientific data or reports?
Yeah, see, these days we are all looking at AQI indexes. There's a certain number. Initially 200 was okay, then it's 300 is okay. We're still living at 300, 400. So with data, it just means that we're still surviving, right? But if you take pictures of Delhi from last month or September, August, when it was raining and the AQI index was hardly just 100 or even less than 100, and you had clear blue skies, clear white clouds, it was absolutely wonderful. And then you take pictures today when the AQI index is going, it's pre-Diwali, and you also take pictures after Diwali. There's a huge difference visually. So a picture can say much more than all the data can sometimes. What kind of a city do we want to live in? Do we want to live in where the leaves and the trees are covered with dust and ash, and with a gray cloud cover and a gray smog, yellow smog? Or do we want to live with blue skies and white clouds fluttering past?
That's pertinent and poignant at the same point of time. But Atul, I have to ask you this. How do you balance the message of climate change with making art that resonates emotionally with people?
See, very interestingly, I did a project which was in 2008 actually, which was called 48 degrees centigrade. It was supported by Khoj and the Goethe Institute, and was curated by Pooja Sood. It was perhaps the only public art project done at a very large scale. And I was giving out water at Kashmiri Gate, free drinking water. And with that, I gave them a sticker, which is a bumper sticker or a bus sticker, which said, "Aapne Yamuna ko kabhi dekha hai, aapne Yamuna ko kabhi chua hai. Have you ever seen the Yamuna? Have you ever touched the Yamuna?" And people who drank from the kiosk that I was giving out water, the kiosk was in the shape of a can, which you usually take holy water in from Rishikesh, Haridwar or Banaras, right? Okay. And it was a large one, and you gave out water from there. So the idea was that we live in a city, but where have we ever engaged with the river? So the thing was, it was a pertinent question. This, right? So and in the evening, I had images of the Yamuna projected onto this kiosk, and at Kashmiri Gate in the evening, huge crowds would come in. They would also want to drink and take a sticker with them. And even after 6 months, a year, I found my stickers on a certain chai shop, inside a bus, on a three-wheeler. So the message goes out, right? This was one of the largest public art projects, and it was, at the time, the temperature in Delhi had not reached 48 degrees. But last year, it reached 48 degrees, if you remember. Right, we had
more
48.
than that, actually.
Yeah. So the thing is that art project done in 2008 and 9 actually predicted the future, that we would reach 48 degrees and we live as if we are just living normally. So how can we kind of elicit responses from people, from school children, from young people, that is this the way we want to live? So all of these things matter, along with artistic engagement. See, what does art do? It may not force you to do things immediately, because there are activist artists, there are other artists who can send us a different message, and there are other messages. Art can also make you think differently, and that is the purpose. So that if you think differently, if you question what is going on, the change will last longer in you. It will not remain only for a while. You will change the way your habits, how you look at the Yamuna. Why can't we have a Yamuna embankment where we can go enjoy ourselves? Why should the Yamuna stink so much?
These are powerful questions, Atul.
Those questions are also to be asked. Right. There are about 22 drains that fall into the river after the river leaves Wazirabad and till Kalandi Kunj. And the 22 drains, these sewage treatment plants are not working. So that's why you have the foam at Kalandi Kunj. So somebody has to ask the questions: who's dumping the phosphates? Who's dumping fertilizer? Who's not? Which sewage treatment plant is not working? Who is asking these questions? So all of this needs to translate into policy and things change. But the awareness has to be done. We have to do it at the school level, college level, and art can really help in pushing the agenda.
That's very interesting that art would trigger questions, it would trigger, approaches, but they have to be carried on. Atul, what opportunities are there for young artists who are listening, who are tuned in right now, to create climate-focused art that promotes sustainability?
Yeah, there are a number of opportunities. I think now there are a number of art institutions and art foundations who are giving out scholarship, bursaries, and residencies, which are engaged with climate change, engaged with how indigenous people live, engaged with looking at histories of resistance, and looking at how the land, water, earth, and air are engaged through mythology, through this thing. So there are a number of people, and there are a number of artists also who continue to work. I would like to name here Shweta Bhattar, who's gone back to her village. She was she is a very successful artist, but she's chosen to go back to her village, work with producing indigenous seeds, looking at local harvesting systems, looking at rainwater harvesting. There is also Gyanwant Yadav, who's currently showing at the Kiranada Museum of Art. He comes from UP and works with agrarian cultures. And Umesh Singh Bhojpur as well. These are very younger artists who are continuously showing and engage and bring technologies from the village, and sustainable technologies which can be adopted, right? And also how we kind of change the way we look and change from a mechanized way of looking at it, and also bringing in sustainability, because the amount of water is limited, amount of land is limited, and we have to safeguard what we have for our futures.
Incredible, Atul, that you named those artists, because I was about to ask if there was any particular artist or artistic movement that has inspired your approach to climate-focused art from, around the world or from India.
See, there have been a number of artists who have been working with the sustainability, right, and looking at not only water, but how we can change the way we look at. Rohini Devashar is another artist I look at. There is also Ravi Agarwal, who kind of works within environmental frames. And there is Sonia Mehra Chawla. There is all my contemporaries, and they are doing extremely great work, right? And these can be examples for younger artists to kind of also engage. And it is not a question of engaging with this kind of work because it's in fashion, because there are a number of bursaries and a number of foundations are willing to give money to make work because they're genuinely interested. Most of the artists have been working to the way they work for a number of years. It is not suddenly that they're on the bandwagon.
Right.
So those things are extremely important, and also that art institutions, if here the KNMA is a good example, who have been supporting a number of these groups also. Like I would also like to mention the Anga Collective in Assam, who are working with climate change and working with multiple species together. They work with elephants in Assam villages, and how they can find a way to kind of live together with multi-species living. So it's extremely important for art institutions to support younger artists in their efforts to kind of bring in sustainability, bring in questions of the Anthropocene, bring in question of climate change, and and to think about how we will live in the future. What future do we have when we have 39, cities and towns in the world with the most polluted, and all of them are in India, 39 of the 50? What kind of water will our children get? What kind of air will they breathe?
Absolutely. Atul, I think, you've just nailed it. Creativity can be a force for good, and together we can make a difference. Thank you so much, Atul, for joining us today.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
So creativity can be a force for good, and together we can make a difference. As they say, kahani abhi baki hai dost. Here is our next guest to increase the decibel of this conversation. We have Kelsey Rae, an artist, a musician.
Thank you. And thank you for what you're doing. I mean, bringing awareness like this is so necessary and needed. So thanks for letting me be a part of that.
Kelsey, you use recycled materials to create instruments, which is so unique. What inspired you to blend sustainability and music this way?
Well, years ago, I had a musical group that primarily just entertained. We played the trash cans and the water bottles, but it was more just for an entertainment purpose. Mm-hmm. And honestly, I got the idea from a movie called The Lorax, which is a Dr. Seuss movie, and he is the voice for the trees. And I thought, as I was walking out of the movie, I thought, why not be the voice for the trash? If we're already playing the instruments, the repurposed guitars, because we have like a toolbox guitar and the trash cans and all of that.
Wow.
Why not put a message behind it? And that's when I created a thing that I call my Think program, Think Before You Throw It Away. And I wrote a whole educational type of program based on recycling through music and dance. Mm-hmm. And then that inspired me to write a children's book. And it kind of just threw us in this green market as far as events wanting the message that we were bringing. And when I saw the effect that music can bring, especially for the kids, it really inspired me to go completely into that market. Yeah.
Wow. I mean, I'm just trying to, imagine the moment when you said to yourself, I've got to become the voice of trash. That is so revolutionary, even a thinking that it's extremely inspiring. Creativity can really engage people with climate action. How does working with recycled materials bring a fresh take on environmental issues and help cool down the climate crisis, Kelsey?
I think a lot of it is just bringing awareness, planting the seed in that younger generation, especially because a lot of I think the issues that are pushed are the recycling and different things like that, which I appreciate that. I think it does need to happen. Mm-hmm. But my mission along with that, and probably at the forefront, is do you really need it first?
Right.
And you repurpose it as much as you can before you throw it into the trash. The wastefulness of things, that's what I try to bring the awareness to the kids, just as far as, well, wait, can you repurpose that into something else? Can you use it a few more times before you throw it away? Or do you actually even need that item? It's those type of things that it's just bringing awareness and planting that seed of change.
So when audiences realize your instruments are made from recycled materials, how do they usually react?
Oh, the kids love it. I mean, audiences in general, the guitars are what really sparks the interest. Uh-huh. Because it's like an old toolbox guitar and you open it up and it's the same innards as a regular guitar. And those type of things definitely pique people's interests. I like to put in the show how we have created. Mm-hmm. So for instance, we have a musical shaker that's old aluminum cans that we just tape together and we put rocks inside and it makes a shaker.
Right.
Little things so the kids' guitars, that's not an easy or inexpensive thing to make. So I like to also inspire things that kids have at home that they can make themselves with what they already have.
That's really, really interesting. Your performances leave people feeling energized and hopeful about the future. Why do you think it's important to bring creativity and positivity into the climate movement?
Well, I know I keep going back to awareness, but for me especially, and I bring up the youth a lot because that tends to be my primary audience. But instead of, let's say, lecturing or just the educational mm-hmm. side of it, I want to inspire them because I feel like music, and no matter the language or the culture, music is such a universal mm-hmm. thing that I feel like when you can just set off that excitement and that inspiration, especially in the kids, it just sparks this want to be a part of change. Instead of lecturing or tell them they have to, it's almost they get to be a part of a movement.
Oh, that's so, so true. Kelsey, before you started, were there music bands who were actually trying to go green by, using the same kind of stuff? Were there music bands like that?
Awareness groups? I'm sure there were. I mean, that it's been around for a while. I know some other mutual artists that have dedicated their life to environmental awareness. But, not many. I mean, this was 15 years ago. So I'm sure it was there. It may not have been as publicized because social media wasn't as big back then, but not as many as I can think of back then. Now there's definitely there's quite a few, which I love. The more the merrier, get the message out there.
Yeah, I was coming to that. But do you see more artists now moving towards sustainable practices in the music industry?
I do. I see the awareness becoming definitely more of a topic of conversation and part of people's shows, which I love it. I mean, because the shows to me go beyond environmental awareness. It's awareness of kindness for each other too. The whole connection of the planet, of each other. And I do see more and more artists wanting to use their tool, their art, to spread awareness, which I love because I think it's such an influential thing, especially for the kids.
So true. What advice would you give to musicians wanting to be more eco-friendly?
I think just being able to utilize either what they're using, as far as just the materials they're using, if they can go more solar ran, or just, there's so many different ways, even if it's not your actual instruments are recycled, even just spreading the awareness through the music or the tones that you're setting, or the message that you're bringing. I mean, there's so many areas to it. And I think nowadays it's super important for artists to think in that realm of unity and positivity and awareness. I mean, all of that, I think it's a really special tool, and I support it. The more I see artists wanting to make a difference with their music, I love it because I think we desperately need that now.
Kelsey, you keep using the word tool here. I really want to understand from you the way you look at it. How do you think popular culture like music, movies, art can influence people's views on climate change? Do you think that it's a very, very powerful way of transforming thoughts and letting people think in that direction?
I mean, I do. And that a lot of that is because of what I've done. I have been really blessed to be able to have gone around the world and seen places like Africa and Mongolia and India and Jordan and all 50 states. And the huge, vastly different problems of environmental issues. You can go from Africa with an overabundance of trash, and same with India, to Jordan with the shortage of water, and the states have all of our different issues, but it's all communal. It's all the same thing. It's just different effects from climate change. And leaving places after we perform and after we include the kids and their ideas that they have thought of how they can make a difference, and the aftermath of the messages and the emails and what the kids are trying to do and the efforts they are doing, that keeps me going because I can just see that spark and that excitement where they're like, I can make a change just by doing these few different things. And I think that goes to everybody. I think everybody could do one or two things different. They don't have to change their entire life, but just
so true.
A little bit of tweaks and changes. I think it will make a huge difference.
Kelsey, I'm glad you mentioned about, the responses that you get. I was coming to that. What kind of responses? You mentioned about emails and, comments. Do you remember any particular email from a kid or a child that you read and you were like, all right, my job is done?
Actually, yeah, there's one that really stands out. A teacher had messaged me after an elementary school that we did, and it was 2 kindergarten girls. And she watched them walking home, and she noticed that there was 2 soda pop cans in the ditch. And they went over and they picked them up and put them in their little basket and kept going. And she said, I just want you to know that what you're doing is making a difference. And it's little things where those girls may have not thought, I'm going to go pick up that trash, and
wow.
Just that kind of, those little messages just make me go, it's working, it is slowly. but surely.
We're liking the entire chat, but I'm sure that you had your set of challenges that you faced while promoting sustainability in the music industry. How have you overcome them, and what were they?
I've been really happy with the progress and what it has accomplished, but it's really just, for me, it's the time consumption as far as like constantly being on the road and definitely sacrificing little things that not as much family time. It's the constant go and place to place, which I absolutely thrive on and love. Mm-hmm. But maybe little different sacrifices like that I've had to do. But honestly, I can't say there have been a ton of challenges. I mean, it's hard, and some days I don't know where my next gig is going to be, or that kind of thing can be a little intimidating. But overall, I mean, the acceptance and how much the kids and people want our message, I haven't seen a ton of challenges.
Wow. I think, you're really motivated, and that's why you're making even your challenges seem so simple. Kelsey, are there any collaboration with other artists or projects that you're particularly excited about when it comes to climate action?
In the future coming up, there are a few, but I will say that the relationships that I have formed in the past few years with different artists, Africa has been the major part as far as the connections have gone. And I have recorded many songs with these artists that are just wanting to bring change and are bringing change. A lot of projects there I have done in Zambia, and specifically there's a song called Calling Out, and it's 6 different artists from Zambia, and each of them have a platform of trying to bring change, and they are bringing change, and it's each of their message on the song. So I've done collaboration in Jordan as well with some artists that again are bringing awareness through music, and it's a really amazing thing to work with artists in different parts of the world and seeing their challenges comparatively to bring change. And it's just, it's definitely changed my life to appreciate just kind of where I'm at and where I'm going, and how much hope that people still have.
I'm sure, Kelsey, when you perform, when you sing, planet Earth would be singing along because you're doing such a fantastic work. Thank you so much for sharing your incredible insights and inspiring us to think differently about how art and creativity can drive climate action. It's clear that the power of music and culture goes beyond entertainment. It can be a force for real change. Thank you so much, Kelsey, for joining Cool It Down. We shall do it together, and one day we will achieve what we are, headed to. Creativity takes courage, and to solve climate crises, we need bold ideas to create awareness. Creative entrepreneurship is about innovation, and we just heard many ideas which can inspire us to make it our business. One mantra for us: innovate and create, because we need to cool it down. I gotta go, but I'm gonna be back. This is Sayema saying bye for now, but I'm aware the world needs a lot more ideas and a lot more guidance. That's exactly what's coming your way in our next episode. Stick around, and yes, let's cool it down.
Cool it down. Let's make it our business.